You are listening to Radical Sacred, a podcast centered around spirituality, nature, and connection.
I'm Phil Dickey, pastor, eco-spiritualist, activist, friend of trees, and a small-town Missourian living in the heart of Dallas.
And I'm Jenny Mislin, spiritual director, teacher, seeker, bird watcher, and a homesick Texan living in France.
Join us now as we live the questions, learn from open-hearted conversations, and explore our own deep and sacred roots.
Why I Should Hike Every Day, No Matter What, by Rosemerry, Wahtola, Trommer. I didn't know how trapped I was in my own busyness until walking past a quiet lake and up through a lush spruce forest, I felt how, with each step toward tree line, more calendar squares disappeared. And all my lists dissolved until I was nowhere but wading through the waist-high bluebells with corn lilies rising above my head. How still my mind was then, still, as I traversed creeks and clambered over fallen trees. Still as I climbed to the place where the clear water streams down gray cliffs and yellow monkey flower flourishes on the banks. I was bathed with gratefulness. Is it true that to know this freedom once is to be able to carry it like a touchstone in my body? Will the larkspur have any dominion tomorrow while I'm trapped in a deadline? Will the scent of summer's last wild roses return when I'm scrambling for just 10 more minutes? Oh, freedom, I long to contain you. That thought makes me laugh. Yet it's true. I long to find myself, mid-hustle, still linked to the gurgling stream. Its water so cold, I can't help but gasp. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Rosemerry. We love a good Rosemerry poem. When she took her 2 weeks from sending her daily poems, I was like, what do I do in the morning when I wake up? I don't have a Rosemerry poem to read, but I do have her book of poems, so that's what I had to go back to an actual book to read poems. Anyway, our guests today, Victoria Loorz and Valerie Serrels, are the people who actually introduced us to Rosemerry indirectly whenever we did the Wild Church Network training, and y'all read a Rosemerry poem while we were there, and that led us to try to track down Rosemerry, and then we got to interview Rosemerry, which was just so amazing. But y'all also brought up Jared K. Anderson, who we had on the pod this season, who was amazing and so fun. The crypto naturalist, loved that, as well as people like Melissa Fritchley, who just co-hosted with us recently, and then Nathan Schultz too, and just have been dear friends and wonderful people to help us in our rewilding and how we're working to bring Radical Sacred not only as a podcast, but also like inviting us as individuals, but also our audience into the natural world all around us, and doing that through words on a podcast, but also embodied practices too. And so, again, if y'all don't remember previous episodes they've been on, they're the co-founders of the Center for Wild Spirituality and the Wild Church Network. They co-authored the Field Guide to Church of the Wild. They lead retreats, cohorts, often are speakers, and just amazing people. If you don't follow them on social media, you should do that. If you don't listen to the Holy Wild podcast, you should do that. We just are big fans of y'all and so grateful for your time and for being back with us today. So any other things you'd like to include our audience if they didn't hear the earlier episodes?
Nope, sounds good. Congrats to you guys. You've had your 100th episodes recently. Blessings.
Thanks for having us on again.
Never would have thought we'd make it to 100 episodes, but here we are, and just love it. Can we just start? Actually, Victor, I'd love to know, you've been doing the podcast, the Holy Wild podcast, for a year now, right? So would love to hear what you've learned being leading a podcast and how that's been for you, especially one called The Holy Wild, because obviously that's a lot of what we talk about.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of for me, it's a good excuse to have conversations with interesting people. And like you said, like, oh, here's a great poet. I'm going to see if they'll talk to me. That is just a gift to me. And then to just see the breadth of this movement, that it's not just the little bubble that we live in, that this movement of that is emerging is about reconnecting with the rest of the earth as relationship and as sacred, and that it is happening. So I just got Rebecca Solnit's new book. It's called "The End Comes After the Beginning." No, the beginning comes after the end. And it's essentially this. It's like she has all of these different examples of what is actually changing, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed by the news that, we get that the end is here. We get that the collapse is happening, but it's more invisible, that there is a rising, and it's not just us speaking hopefully, it's actually happening. So I think that's the biggest blessing in the middle of it.
Oh, that's good. First of all, I love the podcast, and I love all of what y'all do. But will you tell us about what are the Center for Wild Spirituality's roots, and how have you expanded and grown over the years?
Yeah, so the roots are basically what I wrote about in Church of the Wild. Is a day when, it was actually a few years when I was recognizing how my experience of the holy in nature and my work within the church were kept separate. And I was even told by a senior pastor I worked for, I don't know, that God isn't in a tree. I was chastised, and so that, holding that separately, and then working in the climate movement and still holding it separately, and then getting burnt out from both, and finally getting to this place of like, what, basically, why is this separate? Should this be separate? And as I deepened into it, that's when I started Church of the Wild. And then Val started a Church of the Wild, and we started meeting a bunch of other people. So then we just said, well, this is a thing. So we started the network. And about the same time, I was thinking about what needed, something more was happening than the network. People needed to go deeper. And that's when I started Seminar of the Wild, about a year after the network. And then in 2022, my original partners within Seminar of the Wild, we kind of went separate ways. And that's when I started the Center for Wild Spirituality. And just this year, we were able to become a 501c3 and bring the Wild Church Network underneath the Center for Wild Spirituality. So it's been a gradual movement, and I'm writing this next book now that's just called Wild Spirituality. And I've been researching, like, a lot has changed in the last 5 years since the last book came out, and recognizing how much has really been changing, and seeing the even the Wild Church Network as something that's at its threshold of becoming something much more broad. That there's a lot of ways to be a spiritual leader, and there's a lot of ways to be a what we're calling wild church, but it's really just, how do we integrate this this spiritual, emotional, physical relationship with all the beings in our place into whatever it is we're doing. Whatever it is, you do a podcast, you're a barber, you are working business, you are in the church, I just met with somebody yesterday who's a farmer, another woman that works for the state and the environmental program of the state. And it's like, how do you bring this worldview? It's a worldview shift, it's a paradigm shift. And how does that infiltrate into whatever you're doing? And that's the movement. There's still the wild churches and holding that, and Val can talk about that more, holding that a communal place, kind of like so many people have left the indoor church, and even people that haven't left it still know there's something disconnected. So that piece is important, but I'm feeling like we're on a threshold of something much bigger, because that's how evolution happens. The old collapses at the same time that the new arises, and it's just the dominant party is the one who tells the story, and so it's really up to us to tell the story. So what you guys are doing, what we're all doing, is also always about the storytelling.
Val, do you have thoughts on that you want to add, or I have a question specifically for you if you want me to dive in on that?
I'm just picking up on what Vic just shared around like something more coming through the network. And yes, it is about these communities who are listening to place and people and land, and inviting community to gather around that reciprocity. And a few years ago, I read an essay by Margaret Wheatley, a writer, consultant, who was specifically writing about social change and how change happens. And this article was based on emergence. And she names she names networks as central to this process, and then it's like not just the network. So there's she calls them communities of practice, which we could call wild churches, that are distributed, across wherever, across space, across time, across boundaries that we think are real, across geographies, across boundaries of belief systems even, and but who are tied together by something of a core vision. And more than anything, that's what we've seen in the network, is how much it's changed and grown and evolved from primarily a Christian-oriented way of organizing these, what Wild Church is, to more of an interfaith movement and people getting in touch with us. And, I'm Buddhist. I'm not within the Christian tradition. Can I still start a Wild Church? Of course you can. So it was like little by little expanding those boundaries of what that means. But because there's still that core vision. So it almost doesn't matter what the background is or the belief system that might be named. But that there is a calling, a listening to that call of the earth, of spirit, to bridge this relationship, this moving from that illusion of separation into the actual interconnectedness that is real, of between all things. And so that core vision is what carries this the flow of information through the network. And then Wheatley states that once there is this some way to connect all of these communities of practice, that then that third thing comes in, that is something that I can't do, or you can't do, or any particular one church can do, one wild church can do. But by virtue of the fact that we are connected and networked, that it comes that leveling up, that she calls it a system of influence. So that the whole is a system of influence that can change culture. And that's exciting. That's exciting to me. And then when I read that a few years ago, it's like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what happened with the Wild Church Network. We had no idea. And she talks about that. It's not like it comes through a plan or a strategy. It was so organic, that coming into being, that it just feels very mycelial. And it continues to be. Of just, that's what the network is. It's like tending the seedlings and the roots, and sending support and nourishment and what is needed to any particular wild church at any particular time, because we are connected.
I think you just answered my question that I was going to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because maybe there's more to it. But it was really like, what are the ways that you're learning kind of a biomimicry sense from nature to do networking, right? Like to do this structure, because you've created an entire structure, and you just, you have to go the nonprofit route, or I say have to. You chose to go the nonprofit route, and now you're able to pull the Wild Church network underneath the broader nonprofit. But what are the other aspects of nature that you're using? Because there's obviously, like, there's ways to do things top down, right? That's so often how we see structure in our current society. So what are other ways that you're learning from nature to do things differently?
Yeah, it's very much that. We were just both of us just talked with a woman who got some funding to study the Wild Church movement. And one of the things she said was that it's sort of obvious, but it's a feminist movement. And none of us thought about it in that way. None of us went in there saying that this is the way we're going to do it differently. We're sort of being who we are. And even when I started Seminary of the Wild, there were 3 men and myself. And so a bit of a, what do I say? A difference of approach. And I didn't realize it until talking to her last week that was really the core of it. It's like I was not willing to let go, as I have my entire life, of approaching this differently, of approaching this and we could say a more feminine way, in a more ecosystem kind of way, where all the parties are, there's no guru here. There's no, everyone who comes through this program has their own genius, has their own calling, has their own way of implementing and expressing this core value of reconnecting with Earth as sacred in a particular way. And so we don't tell people ever, here's how you do it. And so it's I guess it's just the ecosystem itself is the biomimic elder that we're learning from, that each person brings their own way. And so a lot of it is just really imparting self-permission. It's like Val said just now, like, can I do this? It's like, yeah, why you ask me? Yes, you can do this, and you need to do this in your way. And so sometimes people come in and go, I need to learn the language. It's like, well, it's not here yet. And you are going to have to listen to your own soul and your place and your people and find the language as you're able to tap in more deeply to the message that's being given to you. I guess third, related to that, what Val was just talking about with emergence is a biological term. It's like, and this is when I was starting to see this idea of edgewalker a little bit differently. Like we all see ourselves as edgewalkers. We're walking, you guys too. We're walking on the edge between an old story of dominance and extraction and hierarchy and patriarchy, and a new story that's still emerging, like Thomas Berry talks about. And that new story is still taking shape. We see glimpses of it, including this piece that we're standing in for right now, of returning to Earth as sacred. But I used to see it as like walking on the tippy toe edge, like, don't fall off, we're on this edge. Just sort of like, that's how I visualized it. But now, and then a couple of years ago, I saw it, no, it's really not that. It's more like the edges of a membrane. And as those who are on the edges expand, the whole expands. It doesn't rip apart. And now I'm seeing it even in more deeply as emergence, that how emergence happens in nature is, two membranes are porous, and how two membranes come together and become something else. That's that third way that Val was talking about. And so as we keep ourselves in that porous place on this edge and approaching other people, approaching our place, approaching other species in a place of not like, I'm going to fix you, or you're going to come into, you're going to come to this table and we're going to tell you what's what. in the nicest way, but reminding ourselves all the time that we're going to become less. We're gonna in order to, it's like a vulnerability. I don't have words for this yet. It's like a vulnerability of entering into this membrane to membrane, this porousness to porousness kind of relationship with others, and allowing it to become something else. And that's true for somebody starting a wild church who thinks they're going to do it this way and finds out, actually, no, it's going to become something else. It's true for the work that Val and I do with the network and with the seminary, of, just releasing and allowing what's going to emerge through us. It sounds way easier than it is because it's a constant, letting go, surrender, which is a very different way of being than the old story of like having your 5-year plan, getting it together, stepping in, getting your marketing, getting in there into social media. And so we spend like the whole second year of Seminary of the Wild is, unless you're going through the eco-spiritual direction route, which is where Val's one of the guides, it's like, how do we step into our wild call? How do we listen and honor that reality of entering into relationship with your place, like actual relationship, actually falling in love with particular, like this little hummingbird that comes to this this feeder right in front of me right now. Something will be asked of you, like all love does. Something will be asked of you. And so it's not just, I'm in relationship with nature, and it gives me a lot of wisdom and guidance for my life, and I feel calmer. It is, like all relationships, something that's going to cost you something, because you're going to step in for this other. You're going to be asked to do something maybe really radically different in your life, to step out of that old paradigm. We're not just talking about this, we're being asked to live it in new ways. And the more of us that actually live it, the more that third thing happens. There's another long answer. I said I wasn't going to say much. I got like 4 hours of sleep last night, so I'm all, okay.
Just to kind of riff off of what Vic was sharing, this just in this in-between space that we're in, there's so much we need to unlearn, more than things that we need to learn. And so some of that unlearning involves how we listen. And I know, that's one of the core pieces of the vocational program at the center, is about the deeper layers of listening. And what Vic was talking about is that deeper layer of listening, where there is porousness, where I am not just this objective I anymore in the center of my world, but that I move toward the edges, like literally, and to enter a space where I am connecting with everything else that's in this field of living. And I think this is a kind of a big jump for us as humans, because we have been so acclimated and conditioned by a society that has been shaped by classical science, where there is an objective, there's objects, and we brush up against each other, and just the whole thing of empiricism and materialism. And if it can't be measured and named and delineated, and then it isn't real. And we're moving into a territory as a species and as a planet, for our survival, that we learn to listen in ways and expand our way of knowing how the world actually works, which is nature, which is really a shift in cosmology too. That it's not that everything is about relationships. They aren't secondary. and the way everything works down to a nucleus or a cell is all about relationship and awareness. And so that when something is, when two things come together and there's awareness of the other, that something else, comes forward. And one of the, I know Otto Scharmer of Theory U names something, I can't think of all of them right now, but one of the things he names is underrated and how we can navigate these kinds of times is the attribute of not knowing, and how important it is to not know. Because when we know, when we can name and delineate and label, we're operating from the past, and we're operating from what is not working anymore, basically. And when we are in that space of truly not knowing, that is where emergence, like the emerging future, meets us, and what wants to become meets us. And it's not because it hasn't been, we haven't attended to it in that way, or brought our awareness to it. It just kind of sits there as possibility. But as soon as we're able to kind of attune ourselves, notice, bring awareness, something opens, and then we can access what is wanting to come forward for us, for our particular unique self. And in groups and in communities, to co-sense that together and to see all the different pieces, all the different weaves of a fabric that wants to create something new. So it's such a different way of orienting to ourselves, to the world, to what we say is God. It's just asking us, it's asking of humans to be able to carry paradox, to be able to include the parts of our journey that we know are life-giving, and that we can kind of craft into this weave, and also asking us to just release a lot, just to kind of also buoy what Vic had said. And so it is this ability to hold both, the both and the transcend and the include, and to stand in this moment and open to what wants to come through.
Which is another nature reality, not even a biomimicry. It's like we don't mimic nature, we are nature. And it's just a matter of coming back into what is. And the, like quantum physics at the core, and I'm not a scientist, but this is what I understand. At the core is this awareness that our awareness makes a difference between a wave and a matter. And so
particle.
Yeah, a particle. And so, as what Val just said is the way life works. It's not just a theory. It's just, when you pay attention, then that wave becomes a something. And it's this like really miraculous feeling thing, but it's just how life works, and it has all kinds of implications and everything. And so, I think when we turn away, as we have as a culture, to the way things are, to what is real, that's when, as Thomas Berry says, we shatter the universe. We stop being in conversation. But when we find out, like we didn't understand this about how things work at that particle level until the last 50 years or less. When we discover these new things, so there is a place for science, like there's a difference between the classical science that Val was just talking about and, the continuing to emerge quantum science and other pieces that life works, that these relationship works on every level. And all that we discover as we discover things, then it's like this, ooh, this is interesting. Where are we disconnected again? And how can we return to relationship in a way where we didn't even realize we were disconnected?
Just again, to continue that thread a little bit more, is this is really about, it's a worldview shift. It's a shift of consciousness. And just thinking about the topic of sacred reciprocity, and thinking of that, I was like, what are daily kind of things that can change the way that we just are in the world? Because we are just motivated to do in a certain way and habituated into ways of being. And what just flashed through was like, brushing my teeth, like something just really mundane and everyday habit. It's like, what if that water coming out of my spigot, what if I, instead of just doing what I do, offer gratitude and notice, like bring my awareness to the water with some kind of gratitude. And then thinking, well, that's great, and then we take more pauses during the day to really notice and bring our awareness to all the different ways we are interconnected with every other living thing. And then what just came through is I'm reading a book right now. I just started it, so I don't have a whole lot of insight but it's by Dean Radin, who is the senior scientist at IONS, the Institute of Noetic Science. And he's done just a whole lot of research on the question of, does consciousness, or our awareness, how we hold our awareness, actually do something in the physical world? And, like actual science, this is a scientist, after doing, analysis of so many of these experiments, he's come back with an emphatic yes. Even though we can't measure it and can't fully explain it, the answer is yes. Like that our human intention and awareness shift can actually affect physicality. It's small, in very small ways, but for science, like significant levels. And so it made me think of like that kind of sacred approach, that reverence, that just noticing, feels like it isn't only a worldview shift, and it's not just a spiritual orientation, but it may actually be literally causal, like actually change things in the world. And, to me, it's kind of mind-blowing, but it's also like, this is actually how change happens. And we just haven't been able to give it words yet. And so the new science is doing that through these kinds of studies. And so it's like our relationship with the more than human world, with all of it, and how we attend to that is actually changing how we be human and changing things on the outside.
And love is like the ultimate of awareness. It's more than just paying attention and a moment of gratitude. It is giving yourself, all of yourself, to these others, even when like your kids can irritate the hell out of you at times. You're still so bonded to them in love that is shaping that awareness, that attentiveness, that love is actually changing the world, so it's not just a cool bumper sticker. Like I love how the early intuition of Jesus, of all the religious leaders, of our ancestors, of ancient Greek philosophers is now being confirmed with science. But it's something that, like, we can trust our intuition, following that, what it means to love, So anyway, I'll stop.
Well, both of our minds are blown. So we're going to go where the river flows now, I think. Because we have questions planned, but I don't think that is sufficient. You've talked about so many things. Being an edge walker, sacred conversations, being rooted in real love for people, for place, for space, for all the things. and how that is the engine for change. How did you both arrive at where you are now, knowing that the systems around us are not set up for our success or for nature's success or for anyone's success, except for a select few? How did you come undone in such a way that you started recognizing what love really was and what sacredness was to you both? How did you come undone in a way to think about things so differently?
What a question.
I know
That's
it's
a big
awesome.
question.
I mean, it's kind of a lifetime of undoing. I've sort of been like just oriented my whole life to following and trusting what I'm passionate about. And that has gotten me into trouble, my whole life. And it's also like not an option. So it's not like I choose it. It's just there. It's just how I function. It's, I've made a lot of bad decisions based on it, financially, especially. But that undoing is, when I look backwards, like a good thing about writing a book, everyone should write a book because it forces you, a creative nonfiction book, because it forces you to integrate your own story into what it is feel called to write about. So I have thought about this, about looking backwards, and seeing the thread that I used to think every time a relationship fell apart, every time, I hit a situation in a job, especially in the church, where essentially patriarchy didn't have space for me. And so, and for many years, I thought it was me. I thought it was like, well, the thread here is me. And this thing keeps happening where I keep hitting the wall with inside of me thinking I just want to be myself and just do what I feel like I need to do. But it would hit a place of misunderstanding, and pain, and feeling not included and all that kind of stuff. I think, and then being in that place of undoing, but having, I don't know, I'm just going to say it, having my sister there, always, always Val is there, and no matter what I hit. I remember when I was like 21, and she's saying, if you killed somebody, I'd still defend you, But having people who are on, who you have in your corner makes it possible. I think that is core, actually, of what Seminary of the Wild is, for example, is like, it's a place where you have people who are with you as you're doing this paradigm shifting, countercultural faithfulness to what you've been called to do and be in the world. Is a lonely thing. You're going to hit resistance. And so it's a resiliency that needs a community, at least one person who believes in you no matter what. There's my answer.
There's so many threads that come up. Yeah, it's beautiful. The first thing that comes up when I sit with like coming undone, have to do with some kind of extreme loss, or coming to a place of I can see no way forward. I am done. There's nothing in me that can understand what is happening right now. So those things kind of beyond my ability to understand, beyond my ability to even handle, that have come up several times in my life, in pretty painful ways. that shifted something in me, even if it was subtle at the time, of number one, accepting what is, which is both the limitations of myself as a mother, as a person, as a student, as a whatever my roles, as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, all of it. And opening, there's like a certain opening, even when I didn't know what that was, thinking beforehand. And then so that would be one, and just allowing the grief to be there, allowing a space of forgiving myself for being human. And then the other piece I would bring is kind of what Vic was referring to as, part of the program, because it is part of life, is that call. And it really, when I hit menopause, so I think it was 50, my life started to just unravel and reweave in a way that had nothing to do with me other than my openness. And that feels like it was a natural invitation into a deeper call. And it was like after my motherhood was, my kids were adults, and because that was really my primary identity until then. So I had some experiences that happened, that came through, that were embodied. It was both body and visions that didn't make sense, that came through me. And I couldn't make sense of them at all. And my worldview at the time didn't have a way to understand them. So it was like this expansion happening, and I didn't have a way to do it. So I sought out some people to help me kind of walk through this. And I could tell it wasn't right, because it wasn't the right. So my reaching out to the people that I wasn't helpful. It kind of muddied it. But then I think also, again, because I was open, the mentors came and initiated me. It felt like an initiation into another way of seeing and being, just gradually, and really have to do more with the subtle realms of the energy that is real. The movement from static, solid object to we are actually light and energy, and everything is. And moving deeper and deeper into that. And I think it's both of those. It's like the being open to the pain of life to initiate you into a new way of being. And so some of that, I think, is just latent in my DNA, like how I am wired. I have such massive curiosity about the world. And so it's continued to lead me, and instead of, kind of collapsing, which I probably have done several times too. But I think sometimes we can just collapse when there's too much of life that is painful. To also see that as a gift, as an opening, that the pain and sorrow of the world as also something that can open into a new way of being. So the shadow is gift, bringing what is unconscious into conscious awareness. Just kind of the quantum stuff we were just talking about. It's like, that's real.
Makes me think of burnout.
Yeah.
Like I've burnout several times, and like I can feel it coming again right now. And so the more times you go through it is when you start to recognize it and go, this is actually, burnout means the way you've been trying to do life isn't sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes, and a lot of people hit physical, illness and extended illness. And that's one of those undoing places, or just like burnout for me looks more like the stuff that I used to be able to do. Now I can't do it. I can't write a letter anymore. Like I can't finish this paragraph, whatever it is. And you just lose all that energy, or like depression hits people. And to not just medicate that. And that's not to say that you need, because, there are psychological drugs that actually really help you survive. But to not just go, okay, good, then it's done. It's like, there's more. Your body has the wisdom, and the more you aren't able to listen to it, sometimes we just can't. That's where you need support. That's where you need to spend more time with the others, the trees and the otters. Like, we know this, but when you're depressed, you can't force yourself to do it. But it's like, when you are able to do it, that's when the recovery starts to happen, because it's like allowing it to happen and then staying with it and not trying to fix it or like demonize it or like beat yourself up about it. But to stay there. Like when I got bit by a tick, which was a hilarious ending to a year and a half of just wandering. Like, I thought I'd be living, I put my stuff in storage for 6 months, brought my cat to my sister across the country, and I had a bunch of in-person retreats and stuff to lead. It was right after the pandemic had ended. And it turned out to be not 6 months, but a year and a half, and a series of louder and louder messages were coming. The first one was that the camper van that I had borrowed from a friend with all of my stuff that wasn't in storage was stolen, completely gone, all that stuff. A month later, somebody broke into my car and stole everything else, my purse and everything else, and 2 months later, and these are in 3 different places, I was bit by this tick and got Lyme disease and had to have surgery. I mean, it was really a wake-up call. And right after that, I moved to Virginia to move in with our mom, to be there, and then to be a caregiver in the last several months of her life, along with Val and her family. But it was just like this time of complete, and at the same time I was building all of that time, I was building the Center for Wild Spirituality at night in motels or in whatever. I mean, it's just like the craziest year. God bless it. And this keeps happening. I'll start a story and then I don't remember my point.
I can actually take it from there, Vic.
Isn't that the way of the wild, though?
Yes,
Okay.
it totally is. I was just
Reframing.
going to say that, actually. Like, what we're talking about, like the things that Vic went through, some of the things that I went through, we would say are awful. How horrible. I'm so sorry. And yes, that's part of it, because it was difficult. And that is also holy. It is holiness. It is, just looking at your emblem, the radical sacred. This is radical sacredness when we allow the experiences of our life, no matter what they bring forward, that there's something in it of life trying to guide us. It's like, okay, you're not going to listen to this. There's this tick over here. Not that it's, so choppy like that, but it's just this river of consciousness. And if we can trust that life is bringing us toward something that is needed for either our own growth and development, or for our next step in life, or seeing things in a different way, whatever it is.
It's always for you and the collective.
Yes. So it's a new, different way of seeing everything that happens as part of the sacred flow of life that we are here for.
I just love the continued curiosity you all bring to space and invite us into this space of curiosity. And I'm just looking back on some of the things I wrote down, right? You talked about this feminist emergence that has happened in the leadership and structure of what you've created, right? And then you talk so much about science, which I love. I get all nerdy on science too, and it's not just the classic science; it's the emerging quantum, and then the idea of unknowing. I think that we could spend an entire episode just talk about the uncertainty and the unknowing, and then spiral dynamics and the transcendent include. I know you didn't name it that way, but that's what I was interpreting whenever you said transcendent include. And then this idea of collapse and renewal. And I think that this is what we're talking, like, right, this sense of apocalypse or apocalypsis, I think, is the the Greek that takes us beyond just the revealing of things to this understanding that there, with collapse, there is a renewal piece to it too. And I think that's what you're getting at, right? You're saying that often we tend to cling to the collapse pieces because it's the doom and gloom and what feels so painful. And we don't always allow ourselves to be aware and pay attention to the renewal piece that's emerging too. And if I've learned anything from y'all, which I've learned a lot, it is the attention, right? It's the paying attention. And so I would love to know right now, in this whatever day in the year of our Lord 2026 that we find ourselves, right? What is helping you pay attention to renewal? Like, what has drawn your attention to help you pay attention to the renewal?
Well, I mean, it's the core of, I think, all spiritual journey is to hold the both and to feel when you're, you know, overwhelmed by the doom and gloom. It's like, oh, this is out of balance. Or when you're feeling disconnected from the suffering is another call.
Yeah, because you said numbness a minute ago too, and I thought like, oh yeah, been there, done that, right? Felt that numbness. How do I stay away from the numbness?
And that's a little alert, right? I mean, this is going to sound not very interesting, but it's like I need to go on a hike. I need to be outside. I need to get in the little canoe, kayak that I'm so incredibly lucky to live here right now. Like, it's like miraculous that I can have a little kayak behind my house and there's a sea right there and there's otters. And so then that's related to just the reorienting to gratitude, like Val just said, with when you're brushing your teeth. Like, I think the reorienting to gratitude, when I can feel it when I get caught up in it, and I'm never gonna make this deadline. Oh, I can't. I don't remember how to write. I can't do it now. I do that, and so it is a spiritual practice of like, yeah, I don't have time to go out on the kayak today, but I'm gonna anyway, and or just holding it all lightly, like I haven't been sleeping well lately. It's related to this Lyme disease thing. And so I missed a meeting this morning, almost missed this meeting. The coffee machine didn't work, and the coffee goo all over the sink. And I just walked away. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna not react to this. Just kind of keep going. So it's both staying in the grief and keep going. It's always the both and.
Yeah.
Better answer than that, Val. That one.
Well, it'll be be the same thing with different content, but it's first just picking up on what you were saying about the disconnection and numbness, Phil, and at any given moment we can be in any one of those places, dealing with everything that we see every day coming up in the news feeds.
If you're like right in your front door,
right. Right. And for us, who have some distance from that as far as immediacy, again, I have to go back to awareness, because even the numbness or the disconnection, it's like that homeopathic. It's homeopathic to me, that awareness, because it's like when we instead of avoiding, if we actually bring awareness to it, it will move, because it's energy. But it's like, it feels counterintuitive, because we want to get away, and because there's something in us that just is driven that way. And when we can pause and actually bring our awareness back to that, whatever it is we're experiencing in this moment, something has the ability to shift. And then there's another layer, right? I mean, it's not like we're ever completely free of any of these, but I also wanted to bring in this film that I've seen several times now. And the term that it's called the AI doc, and it's about AI. Yes, have you seen it?
I was going to ask you all about AI, and I have not watched it yet, but it keeps coming up on my feed, and I love the Center for Human Technology. So yeah.
Yes, yeah. So the guy who's was one of the co-founders of that center, Tristan Harris, was on a webinar the week before the film opened, and I was just mesmerized and like so much resonance with what he was sharing. But within the name of that, it's called the AI Doc, or How I Became an Apocaloptimist. And I love that term. So, and he talks about it, like, because the web host was saying, well, because Tristan Harris is in the AI world. He was part of the early movement in Silicon Valley before, as the social media kind of took over, and then AI. And they were saying, and he was saying, this is a computer scientist, and he's also saying we need to be paying attention to our grief, and we can't bypass that. And also saying we have a choice to make here. And so the host was saying, well, can you give us any hope? Where is it? And he goes, no, actually can't. We are standing at that place in between actual annihilation within a decade, or something new will come up from, where we can't even see yet, the cracks. And the reality of that, part of me was like, oh, holy crap, I know this. I think we all feel this, like this large ending that we don't want to even imagine, but is possible. And in the midst of that, there's something new that is coming that I can feel. I think we can feel. I feel it so strong in my body that the excitement of it, or I don't even know what word to give, like the enlivening of it, is equal to the grief. And any one moment or one day, I might be feeling one or the other more. But it's like, okay, how do standing in between and not allowing this to either overtake, into collapse, the grief and what is happening, but also not bypassing, and allowing space to really move into what is this, and moving more deeply into emergence and what the emerging future is wanting from us, each one of us. And so in that sense, it feels exciting. It's such a weird place to be.
Well, earth and spirit are on the side of making the right decision. It's like out of annihilation comes new life. When we were just talking about, I was just talking with my son the other day about the dinosaurs. He was tripping out and like going on a long AI channel of learning about dinosaurs. And and it was like he came out of it going, these were creatures that had emotions, and they cared about their families, and they were beings of aliveness that lived on Earth, and they're gone now. And like, that is just a trip. And what happened after that goneness was the flourishing of diversity of life that led to us. Like, to just have that perspective that's beyond, that includes my life and the worry I have for my children and their children, and the bigger story that we actually are part of. It's not just an idea, but how do we really, that is it. It's like living with both of those at the same time, and it does flip and flop, but to be able to stay in the spectrum of the both. It's both a decision we make, but it's a decision to collaborate with a larger decision that has been made for life, and to love anyway, no matter what. At the end, it's like, in the end, you're not wasting anything by choosing to live in a way that is defined by love.
Thanks for keep bringing us back to love. I think that's just a really good word of continuing to bring us back to. I will say, Tristan Harris was also on the Sound of Sand, Science and Non-Duality podcast recently. And so if you want to learn more about that documentary and Tristan's work, then it's a good spot. And also, Tristan, when you're listening, if you ever want to come on the pod, we'd love to have you too, because I'm sure, just put that out in the ether world. You never know.
Well, friends, as we close on our time together, which there's never enough time.
There's never enough time.
There just really isn't. But as we do, we hope that what you've heard is porousness. And we hope that what you've heard is both andness and edgewalkerness and sacred conversations with the human and the more than human. We hope that what you've heard is that your sacredness is sacred and that all of ours is. That there's room for all of it. And that amidst the collapse, there's an invitation to a new way of being. What do you guys have coming up that you would like for people to know about, and how can people find your work?
Well, we're open for the next cohort of Seminary of the Wild Earth. It's the Crow cohort. So listen to the crows. If the crows are speaking to you, I encourage you to go to wildspirituality.earth. And then within the Wild Church Network, why don't you address that?
Yeah, we have a new website, so I just invite people to visit it. And we'll have another Wild Church leadership course coming up, but we don't have the date yet. It'll be late summer, more than likely. So to continue to just check back. And if there's folks who aren't part of the ecosystem, it's a Mighty Networks platform. It's a place to go check out and kind of where all of this lives. And there's so many events offered for free in there. There's Wild Church Online that is following the Celtic Wheel of the Year. So there's one coming up this Friday. And there's the Wild Weavings practices on Tuesdays, led by different guides that have gone through the program.
I love them so much. Can I just shout out the Wild Weavings? Because I don't make it every Tuesday, but every chance I have a Tuesday 30-minute window, it's just amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, just check out our new website. And
well, yeah. on the Wild Church Network, there's a map, and so you can see if there's a church near you, and if there isn't, that might be a sign that you need to be the one starting it. And so there's a pathway through the website to get the support you need to be able to do that.
And we have introductory calls every month that you can find on there too, for people just curious, about Wild Church, or how do I start one, or what's my next step. So it's for the Wild Church curious to come and have conversation.
Well, I would just love to thank you all, because you truly continue to not only pique my intellectual curiosity, but stir my soul every time we're in conversation. And even when we're not in conversation, the things that y'all continue to do in the world continue to give me hope. Sometimes it's hard to find hope, but it truly does just nurture my soul, all the things you're putting out in the world and the community that you're building around it. So just a huge thank you on behalf of me and Jenny and our audience as well. We're grateful for all of you.
Grateful for you.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for being a part of the Radical Sacred community.
In these uncertain times, may you cling to hope and deep connection, and may you work towards living in a spirit of reciprocity with all beings.
Our lovely intro and outro music is Beach Song by the band Serrels.
And it's just the two of us here at Radical Sacred, so please help us out by sharing with your friends, rating and reviewing us. Find more of our work on Substack and Instagram.
Remember, you are on sacred ground. Stay rooted.